a movement that many people, I know many of you are doing, that if you have the option not to do, I would probably recommend not doing it. And that is a team, I'm going to be honest with you. I think this may well be the shortest growth guide series video I may have ever done. Because today we're actually going to be looking at the arms. In all honesty, there's not a mass amount to say about them. Regardless, we're going to go through the bits and bobs that we need to go through. So we're going to talk about the muscles of the arms that we're typically thinking about working, the functions of those muscles, and how you can best work them, and also potentially some things you might want to consider avoiding that you may be doing currently. Obviously, before we do so, we need to do the bits and bobs that need to be done. If at any point throughout this entire video you decide that you actually like the video and don't want to punch me in the face, or maybe even learn something from the video, so take something away from this video that you might be able to apply to your own training, then please do consider liking the video by clicking the like button down below, and maybe even clicking the red button down below to subscribe to the channel, and also potentially tickling the bell next to it so you get notified when I upload every week, twice a week. At the end of every video I do comment question of the week, so if you have a question you want me to answer at the end of the next video, then please do consider drop it down below in the comment section, and I shall do so. Although this isn't a hat, I kind of like the headpiece because I feel like I'm off to a festival, despite the fact that it's November and it's bloody freezing. We're going to be looking at two primary areas with the consideration of one kind of subsection. So that's going to be first the triceps, being the muscle on the back of the arms. Then we're going to look at the biceps, being the muscle here. And then we might tickle a little bit of the forearms as well, being obviously the forearms. Despite it being bloody freezing, I figured it might actually be best if I take my jumper off so you can see more skin and stuff, because that might help. We'll start with the bigger area of the upper arms, which is going to be the triceps, being the muscles on the back of the arms here. So the triceps, being here, essentially has three heads. So think about triceps, tri meaning three. So you've got the lateral head, the long head, and then the medial head down here. So the lateral head is kind of this meat on the outside of the arm here. The long head is this kind of meaty bit underneath, and then the medial head is down below. And the primary function of the triceps, and the function that you typically refer to when training the triceps, will literally be as simple as elbow extension. So that's literally straightening the elbow, which is why triceps are so heavily involved in a lot of pressing movements. Because when you're doing a bench press, a shoulder press, any kind of pressing, that elbow is getting straighter, therefore the triceps are going to have to do something to straighten that elbow. And when it comes to effectively training the triceps, I guess in simple terms, all you want to be doing are movements that essentially straighten that elbow. So we can consider things along the lines of dips, for example. We consider close grip bench press, we can consider a JM press, we could consider skull crushers, incline, flat, whatever you want to do, overhead movements in general, overhead extensions, and for most people I think the most common and arguably one of the best kind of selection of tricep movements you could include will be push down variations. So crossbody push downs, rope push downs, V-bar push, anything in which you are extending the elbow. And it's that simple. But now we've kind of spoken about the triceps and what we could do for the triceps, let's kind of spit some facts out there. Well, I've spoken before about something called stretch mediated hypertrophy, which is that kind of additional benefit that some muscles get from training their length and position. Triceps do not get any additional benefit from stretch mediated hypertrophy. Therefore, you don't need to train them in their length and position. When I say length and position, I mean when the majority of tension is when the elbow is most flexed, so most bent, so stretched out position. Can you still do length and position dominant movements? Absolutely. So just because a muscle doesn't benefit from stretch mediated hypertrophy doesn't mean doing so negatively impacts it. It just simply means it does not yield any additional benefit. And typically when you were thinking about like overhead movements like so, a lot of people used to assume that was very much long head dominant. So obviously long head being this big juicy bit underneath here. More research has kind of come to light that that's not actually as long head dominant as you might think. It may typically actually place a bit more emphasis on the medial and the lateral heads. So like I said, the smaller head here and the bit underneath there. Still a good movement, just maybe not working the area of the triceps in which you initially thought they were going to work. If you really want to milk the long head for all it's worth, typically you will do a push down variation in which you can keep your elbows out at about 30 or 45 degrees, just like so. So rather than pushing down close to the body as a lot of people typically do, literally flare the elbows out like so, because doing so better aligns the long head with its origin in the scapula. Therefore will allow you to produce more force when training in that position. We'll kind of throw something out there before we go on to biceps. A movement that many people, I know many of you are doing, that if you have the option not to do, I would probably recommend not doing it. And that is a tricep kickback. If you think about the movement itself, where you're essentially bent over and you're extending the elbow like so. You're kind of losing a lot of tension in the bottom portion, and it also puts you in quite an unfavourable position. Imagine if I did the exact same movement but upright. You're then doing a pushdown. So the kickback goes through pretty much the exact same range of motion as a pushdown variation typically would with a cable machine, but is actually a less effective means of achieving that same range of motion. Therefore, I would probably, if you're up to me, swap out kickback variations for pushdown variations, because like I said, they're likely going to be more effective, likely allow you to work the tricep through a better range of motion with more tension throughout that range of motion, and also allow you to better flare the elbow to better line up the long head with, like I said earlier, its origin in the scapula. That's triceps already done. I must interrupt the video you're currently watching to let you know that this video is in fact sponsored by the Ridge Wallet. The thing, that's upside down, the thing. I'm sure many of you are aware, the Ridge Wallet is essentially a very small, compact wallet in which you can put all your cards and all your cash in from there. It's bloody sick, and it also made me realise that I have so many cards I don't need in my life. It's small, it's compact, and it also looks bloody stylish. You see it's got like the grey and the blue, kind of matches my car, I like that. And also, they sent me a key thing as well, so I can put my keys in here. But the only downside is I literally only have one key. And obviously Christmas is coming up, so people are probably going to want to buy some things for people that they care about. And conveniently, you can get a bloody good offer by going to ridge.com/TFNL, because right now you can actually save up to 40%. Look at that, 40%. Sick. Which is, like I said, bloody convenient considering Christmas is around the corner, and this offer is only actually available and online until the 22nd of December. So again, if you are interested in tickling a Ridge Wallet or the key chain thingamajig, then please do consider going to ridge.com/TFNL to save yourself some dollar and buy somebody that you care about a gift. You know, maybe even buy somebody hate a gift. Why not? But now, firstly, thank you to the Ridge Wallet for sponsoring this video, and we shall crack back on with the content that you were tolerating before I rudely interrupted you. So let's crack on to biceps. So the biceps obviously being the muscle here, and very similar to the triceps, the clue is in the name. The biceps have two heads, the short head being the inside head, and the long head being the outside head. And obviously, like I said, clue in the name, bi meaning two heads. And they basically do the opposite of the triceps. So obviously the triceps work on extending the elbow, the biceps work on flexing the elbow. So like I said, triceps straighten, biceps bend. And again, very similar to the triceps as well, they do not get any additional benefit from being trained in their lengthened position, therefore do not get additional benefit from stretch mediated hypertrophy. And similar to the triceps, where different movements would bias different heads of the triceps, you can do similar sort of things with the biceps. You can actually bias the different heads of the biceps by your arm positioning. If you're curling internally rotated like so, and arms kind of across the body somewhat, you may bias the short head of the bicep a bit more. If you're slightly externally rotated, so kind of away from the body, you may bias the long head of the bicep a bit more. So obviously the short head is on the inside, the long head is on the outside. Whichever direction your hand is kind of leaning more towards will bias that respective head. So in for the short head, out for the long head. So again, that very much comes down to internal and external rotation. When it comes to kind of favorite movements you can do for the biceps, it is as simple as curl variations. So typically I'm a big fan of doing mid-position dominant curl variations. So things like the dumbbell curl, things like the easy bar curl, the cable curl, things along those lines. Although you can do other curl variations like the preach curl, for example, which may bias a shortened position a bit more. You can do behind the back curls or incline dumbbell curls that may bias a lengthened position a bit more. When the upper arm is in line with the body, it is typically going to be a bit more mid-position dominant. If the arm is in front of the body, it's typically going to be a bit more shortened position dominant. If the arm is behind the body, it's typically going to be a bit more lengthened position dominant. What I would say is whenever you're doing any kind of bicep curl variation, make sure you are maintaining a supinated grip. So that's when the palm is facing the ceiling. So when you're curling, the palm is up, not down, not neutral. This is essentially going to place as much emphasis on the biceps as possible and take emphasis away from other muscles such as the brachialis, etc., which is what we're going to cover very quickly. So the brachialis is a muscle that's actually heavily worked when doing neutral grip or reverse grip curls. So hammer curls, reverse grip curls, things along those lines. Although the biceps are still working because you are flexing the elbow, you are taking emphasis away from the biceps to then place emphasis on the brachialis, therefore potentially reducing how effective that movement might be for the biceps to, like I said, favor another muscle instead. Should you do brachialis dominant curl variations? Absolutely. And if you want to know my favorite is actually probably a dumbbell hammer curl. You can also do rope hammer curls, you can do reverse grip curls, anything you really want. Because the primary function of the biceps is elbow flexion, when you're doing any kind of rowing variation or pulling variation, anything in which the elbow is flexing, so bending bending, the biceps are going to be heavily involved, which is why you may feel your biceps fatiguing quite quickly when you're doing your back day. And to be honest, that is bicep training made simple. That is literally it. But then we'll kind of very quickly touch on the forearms. So the forearms, obviously here, the forearms, you know the forearms. For most people, you do not need to train the forearms directly because they get so heavily worked doing a lot of other movements. But if you want to train the forearms directly, you have some options. Those kind of forearm dominant movements are very much around the realm of wrist curl variations, so variations of the wrist curl. But also doing direct grip work could be a great means of working the forearms too. So doing things like farmer's holds, plate pinches, anything in which the grip is going to be tested is obviously going to work the forearms fairly reasonably. Like I said, most people don't need to train the forearms directly because they're so heavily worked doing a lot of other movements. And some people may not even feel the need to train the biceps or the triceps directly because the triceps are so heavily worked during pressing and the biceps are so heavily worked during pulling. Personally, I would always favor training them directly if you want them to grow, although you may experience some hypertrophy and arguably sufficient hypertrophy depending on your goals just by doing pressing and pulling variations. I would typically throw my bicep work into my pull day in which I might do 1 or 2 bicep movements. That could be anywhere from 1 to 2 sets of anywhere from, let's say, 5 to 30 arguably. I typically favor about 5 to 10, 6 to 12. With the triceps, I would typically throw my triceps onto a push day in which I might do 1 or 2 tricep movements. Again, same sort of thing, 1 to 2 sets, maybe 5 to 30 reps. Again, I'd probably favour about 5 to 10, 6 to 12, it really does depend. And arm training really is that simple. It doesn't need to be that complicated. Curl, push down, flex, extend. You're done, you're laughing. But now that's it. We may as well crack on with comment question of the week. Can you explain the TFNL online coaching a bit more? What does it look like? Are there video calls involved or do I have to film myself during exercise execution? What is the price point? I have never had any coaching / PT, so I don't really know what to expect. So essentially TFNL online coaching, obviously online coaching with myself, it essentially tailors the service to what you want and what you need to reach your goals. So initially we would start with a video consultation to figure out your goals and whether you think it's a good fit for you and whether I think it's a good fit as well. So then we can make sure we're both on the same page and both happy with what's being presented to us. Then essentially the actual coaching service itself, pretty much what you want it to cover that helps you reach your goals. Again, the baseline that everyone typically expects with the coaching realm is going to be programming, so obviously doing your programming for you. Then it's obviously going to go into form analysis, in which, because I'm not there with you, I typically ask for you to send across videos of you doing certain movements, or actually every movement if possible. But I always say, if you aren't comfortable filming, I will never force you to film. Just know that I'm a big believer in more data is better. So if you want to film everything you're doing, I would love to see everything you're doing. But also if you don't want to film anything you're doing, I'm never going to make you, because I understand that can promote a lot of gym anxiety, and I'm not here to promote anxiety. It could be macro guidance, so speaking about like calories, carbs, fats, proteins, and potential targets that you would like to hit to reach your goals if you want to. But again, if you don't want to follow macros, you don't have to. Check-ins as well, so physique check-ins if you want to do that for the accountability aspect, all those things and all those bits and bobs. Regular communication. I speak to most of my clients every single day, and I'm a big believer in developing strong relationships with clients where I don't want to see clients as necessary clients, but I'd always like to get to the point where we consider each other friends. Building healthy and stable relationships is very important, be that personal or professional. There are video calls involved if you want a video call, there are phone calls involved if you want a phone call. It's one of the things, it's just whatever you feel you need to achieve your goals, I will provide, provided I am able and qualified to do so. So it's not necessarily one direct service, because the service essentially depends on the person and their goals and what they want from me. What that price is something I discuss directly with potential clients, either before the initial video consultation. I will be introducing different tiers of coaching. So at the moment, I've got obviously the kind of full service package of one-to-one, but I am considering something along the lines of group coaching, which is going to be more of a subscription service. That is going to be extremely cheap. The price point is likely going to be cheaper than your Netflix subscription. And the group coach is hopefully going to launch at the beginning of January, and then the growth guide PDF, which is going to be a one-off PDF, is also actually launching hopefully on the 19th of December. And obviously with the one-to-one coaching side of things, I am doing another client intake through December to hopefully start in January. So there's lots of things occurring, and if you are interested in the coaching or anything along those lines, the links are always down below in the description box. That is it. That is the video. Like I said at the start of the video, if you like the video, then please let me know you like the video by liking the video, and maybe even by tickling the red button down below to subscribe to the channel, and potentially even clicking the bell next to it so you get notified when I upload every week, twice a week. And if you two have a question you want me to answer at the end of the next video, then please do consider dropping it down below in the comment section for comment question of the week, and I shall do so. Thank you for tolerating me. Thank you for tolerating my festival attire, and thank you for tolerating the video.